The Misrad Hapnim application through the Jewish agency represents the moment when your carefully assembled pile of documents gets passed from one group of well-meaning bureaucrats to another group of well-meaning bureaucrats, like a very expensive game of administrative hot potato where the stakes are your entire future and the rules change depending on who's working that day. This stage transforms you from a hopeful immigrant into a case file with a number probably stored somewhere between someone applying from Manitoba and another person whose grandmother's maiden name contains too many consonants for proper filing. The Jewish agency's role as intermediary essentially makes them professional translators of human dreams into bureaucratic language that Israeli government officials can understand and process without developing stress-related disorders. Agency staff have mastered the delicate art of taking your heartfelt essay about returning to the homeland and converting it into administrative Hebrew that sounds official enough to satisfy people who spend their days stamping documents with the intensity of Renaissance artists creating masterpieces. The application preparation process involves Jewish agency staff examining your documents with the thoroughness of art authentication experts, searching for any flaws that might cause Israeli bureaucrats to reject your case for reasons ranging from insufficient apostille seal clarity to birth certificate font appears suspicious. You discover that your life story must be translated not only into Hebrew, but also into the specific dialect of Hebrew spoken by government employees who apparently learned the language from instruction manuals written by robots. Translation and authentication coordination reveals that the simple act of proving you exist requires documents to be blessed by so many official authorities that you begin to suspect international bureaucracy might actually be an elaborate religious ceremony. Your birth certificate needs to be translated, apostilled, notarized, authenticated, and probably blessed by at least 3 different government officials who may or may not be available on Tuesdays, depending on whether it's a month with 31 days. Security clearance coordination occurs through mysterious processes that apparently involve Israeli authorities conducting background checks so thorough that they probably know more about your embarrassing high school incidents than you remember. The Jewish agency serves as liaison for security inquiries that range from "Please explain that semester you studied abroad in Prague" to "Why did your LinkedIn profile once list international consulting as your job description when you were actually unemployed and traveling around Europe staying in hostels?" Medical documentation review ensures that your health records meet Israeli standards, which apparently require more detailed medical histories than most people maintain for their own healthcare purposes. The agency coordinates reviews of medical documentation that forces you to prove not only that you're healthy enough to immigrate, but also that you haven't been hiding any fascinating medical conditions that might make you more interesting than your application suggests. Family coordination becomes an exercise in genealogical project management when multiple relatives decide to make aliyah simultaneously, creating administrative challenges that resemble coordinating a very large, very bureaucratic family reunion where everyone needs different documents and no one can agree on timing. The Jewish agency must ensure that family applications don't contradict each other, leading to situations where your brother's application might accidentally prove that you're actually adopted, which would be awkward for everyone involved. Application submission timing requires the Jewish agency to coordinate your readiness with the mysterious rhythms of Israeli government processing, which apparently operates according to schedules that take into account Jewish holidays, security situations, staff vacation time, and the lunar calendar. You discover that optimal submission timing depends on factors including, but not limited to, whether it's an election year, how many other people from your country are applying, and whether the reviewing officer had a good breakfast that morning. Follow-up procedures involve the agency monitoring your application's progress through Israeli bureaucratic systems that apparently function like a very slow, very official version of postal mail. where documents occasionally disappear into administrative black holes and emerge months later with additional stamp requirements. The agency serves as translator for communications from ministry officials who write in a form of Hebrew that somehow manages to be both extremely formal and completely incomprehensible. Appeals and problem resolution become necessary when your application encounters bureaucratic obstacles that range from the predictable, your documents arrived on the wrong color paper, to the bizarre, the reviewing officer questions whether your grandmother was actually Jewish because her signature looks too modern. The Jewish agency's expertise becomes invaluable for navigating administrative challenges that would confuse professional diplomats and possibly require intervention from international law experts. Approval notification occurs through a process so anticlimactic that you might miss it entirely, receiving official confirmation of your life-changing immigration approval through communications that read like parking ticket notifications. The moment you've been waiting for arrives via bureaucratic language so dry that you need the Jewish agency to confirm that yes, application status approved for processing actually means, congratulations, you can now become Israeli. Not, we have successfully received your application and filed it under pending further review. Conditional approval situations create the peculiar bureaucratic status of being conditionally welcome to immigrate, which feels like being invited to a party with the understanding that you might be asked to leave if you can't prove you belong there. Common conditions include requirements that sound reasonable until you try to fulfill them, such as provide additional medical examination results from Israeli doctors you haven't met for conditions you may not have. Rejection management represents the Jewish agency's most challenging role, explaining to devastated applicants that their lifelong dreams have been administratively denied for reasons that might include insufficient documentation of Jewish identity or application submitted during month with unfavorable processing statistics. The agency must deliver this crushing news while maintaining professional optimism about potential appeal procedures that might succeed if you can somehow obtain documents that were destroyed during World War II. Documentation storage and record-keeping reflect the agency's understanding that your immigration case generates enough paperwork to stock a small library, all of which must be maintained with the care typically reserved for historical artifacts or evidence in criminal proceedings. Your case file becomes a comprehensive archive of your existence, organized according to filing systems that make perfect sense to professional archivists and no sense whatsoever to normal human beings. Processing timeline management requires the agency to provide realistic expectations about approval timeframes while avoiding the psychological trauma that might result from telling applicants that their cases could take anywhere from 6 months to approximately the same amount of time required for continental drift to create noticeable geographic changes. The agency's experience enables them to predict processing times with the accuracy of meteorologists forecasting next week's weather. Generally correct about general trends, occasionally spectacularly wrong about specific outcomes. Communication protocols during ministry review involve the agency serving as interpreter for bureaucratic communications that appear to be written in code, translating messages like additional documentation review, required for case compliance verification, into human language. That means, please wait while we figure out whether your paperwork makes sense to us. The agency maintains professional diplomatic relations with Israeli authorities while privately acknowledging that government processing procedures sometimes defy logical explanation and may actually be designed by people who find Byzantine complexity aesthetically pleasing. The entire process creates a peculiar form of administrative anxiety where you simultaneously trust that thousands of people have successfully navigated this system before you, while suspecting that your specific case will be the one that reveals previously unknown bureaucratic complications requiring the invention of entirely new administrative procedures. The Jewish Agency serves as your guide through this bureaucratic wonderland, equipped with institutional knowledge, endless patience, and probably significant quantities of coffee necessary for maintaining sanity while working within systems that treat human immigration dreams as data processing challenges requiring extensive documentation and multiple levels of official approval.